Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Hello everyone, it's Jeannie, and today we're doing part 2 of the 1001 Nights. So just to clarify really quickly, this is the first official story that Shahrzad ever told Shahrbaz, and it's only referred to as the second night because the first night was really more about them meeting and, just the whole origin story thing. But now with that out of the way, we can officially get into the 1001 tales that Shahrzad spun. Last left off, the Mad King Shahrbaz had recently gotten himself a new wife, the cunning and exceptionally clever vizier's daughter, Miss Shahrzad. After hearing her spin an enchanting tale to lull her little sister to sleep after their wedding ceremony, the king decided to spare her life for just one more night, so she may also fabricate such a wondrous tale for him. And that, my friends, is the story we'll be covering tonight. The story of... But before we begin, please subscribe to this channel and click the little bell icon so you never miss a new story, and give us a like, because, that really helps us out. Alright, without further ado, back to our first tale of the 1001 Nights. Right as the sun set and the new king and queen of Persia retired for the evening, Shahrzad began her new tale, the tale of Ifrit and Men. Once upon a time in old Baghdad, there lived a wise old merchant whose wealth knew no bounds. Many went to him seeking his formidable insight on the art of the trade, and many more went to him asking for the hand in marriage of his sons. Overall, life was good for the old man. That is until one day he catched whiff of some new exotic goods arriving in the next town over, and decided to personally make the journey there to purchase them. The merchant and his caravan immediately set off, traversing across the harsh desert. After some time, the sun began to fade. Fatigue set in, and they decided to call it a day. While everyone else is busy setting up the camp for the nightfall, the merchant wanders away until he finds a lone tree casting a shadow amidst the sand dunes. Seeing as how no one really needs his help at the moment, the merchant decides that he can rest here until the camp is ready. Hungry and exhausted from the long trip, the merchant takes out some dates from his pocket, pits them, and throws the pits across the sand. And that would be the most fatal mistake he ever made. Quick side note, back in the old days when someone had to traverse the desert or dry lands, which were much more brutal back then as opposed to our modern deserts that come equipped with air conditioning and gift shops, there were really only 4 types of food that they could bring on such journeys. Water, for obvious reasons, date, because they maintain the body's fluid balance and prevent dehydration in extreme heats, as well as reduce overall body blood sugar. Basically, after water, dates were a necessity. Bread, since it could keep hunger away for longer, and finally keshk, dried yogurt in the shape of gumballs, which wouldn't rot or deteriorate in the extreme desert heat. Back to our merchant, who's about to learn that littering has extreme side effects even in the good old days. Just as fast as the pits had been discarded, the ground begins to shake and crack. From the sand, a hideous creature emerges, a fiery hatred radiating in its glowing eyes. As if the sands bow to his command, a sword forms from a number of small grains and lands in his clawed hand. In a voice that could frighten even the bravest of kings, the Ifrit declares to the merchant, "I shall unalive you for your evil act." Now, what exactly is an Ifrit? Can't believe this is my first official story I'm covering. I don't like this. Basically, to simplify, Ifrit are a subspecies of jinn. And what are jinn, you may ask? Well, in Islam, Allah creates 3 predominant creatures. The angels, made from pure light. The humans, made from clay. A bit some iterations will say dirt. And finally, the jinn, whose creation material differs in almost all iterations. The Quran, under Surah Ar-Rahim 15 or 55:15, specifically says that jinn are made of smoke and air. This would make them the sole species made from 2 factors rather than 1. However, certain tafsirs, which are basically when people try to explain complex concepts in the Quran in layman's terms so the average Joe can understand them, take this to mean the jinn are created from smokeless fire. Other tafsirs will dispute this, saying that jinn are purely made of smoke on account of smoke floating in the air and disappearing. To further explain this, in Islam, jinns are typically invisible. However, under specific circumstances and certain exceptions, they become visible to the average human. Now, if you're looking at me and asking, well, Jeannie, what are you made of? I'll simply say this. If you want to know, really want to know, then comment Genie 101 down below, and I'll make a full video explaining genies and what they specifically are made of. Now, back to our story. "I shall unalive you for your evil deed," the monstrous creature said as he pointed his sword at the merchant's throat. Despite being perplexed with fear, the merchant is somehow able to stutter out a barely audible, "But why?" which is immediately responded by the Ifrit. because the pits you just threw hit my poor innocent little baby boy in the heart, and now he is unalive. This you must pay. Remember what I said about jinns being invisible except under specific circumstances? Well, baby Ifrit was invisible, but his downfall is what led to Papa Ifrit making himself visible to extract revenge on behalf of his baby. Now note that in most Persian stories, the protagonists are designated by how smart and cunning they are and how quickly they can come up with strategies on the fly. I think that gives them a little bit of a boost as compared to their international counterparts, but I could be wrong. Our little merchant friend here is no exception and quickly makes an offer to the Ifrit. If the monstrous creature would be so kind as to let him return home first and write out his will, dividing his wealth between his sons, and then in 1 year's time he'll return to this very spot and permit the monstrous entity to extract whatever justice he sees fit upon the merchant. What's shocking about this proposal is that the Ifrit actually agrees. Now, a year is a lot of time, ample time actually, for the merchant to finish his journey to the next town, buy the new products, sell his products, return home to sell the new products, receive even more money, tell his kids what happened with the Ifrit, write down a will, feed the camels, hang around for a few months, then take the journey back to the lone tree in the middle of the desert. Shocking how time flies when you're waiting for your unavoidable doom. Whilst the merchant awaits the Ifrit to come and finish him off, a lone man with a gazelle walks by the tree. The old man stops and tells the merchant that he should probably get out of here, as this is typically where Ifrit tend to roam. The merchant has a no duh Sherlock moment and begins to explain what happened to him. What with this whole littering thing causing the accidental demise of a baby Ifrit, and now he's waiting for the father to extract revenge. Feeling sorry for the merchant, the old man and his gazelle decide to keep him company as he waits. Some time passes and the Ifrit still hasn't shown up. Instead, another old man, this time accompanied by 2 dogs, arrives. And finding it weird that these guys are hanging around a known Ifrit ground zero, asks what they're up to. The merchant responds with, "Look man, I did something stupid, so now I'm waiting for the evil glowy-eyed Ifrit to come and kill me, and this dude and his gazelle decided to keep me company." Feeling bad for the merchant, the new guy and his dogs decide to also hang around until the Ifrit shows up. Even more time passes and the merchant starts to grow impatient. However, wouldn't you know it, another old guy shows up, this time with a donkey in tow. And before he can say anything, the merchant responds with, Yeah, I know, this is apparently a hot spot for the Ifrits and you're going to tell me to get out of here. But, turns out I accidentally killed one, so now I have to wait for my execution at the hands of the Ifrit's father. Bad luck, I know. Wanting to see how this turns out, the old man and his donkey decide to join the rest of the gang until the Ifrit shows up. As the sun begins to set, the feeling of doom and despair actually starts to kick in and crawl up the merchant's back. As he wails and cries about not wanting to die, and the 3 old men try to comfort him. Right at that very moment, the Ifrit finally decides to make his grand appearance by menacingly jumping out of a giant hole in the sand. He grabs the merchant's feet and slowly drags him into the anonymous pit in the middle of the sand. But right before the merchant and the Ifrit are completely submerged within the desert, the first old man, you know, the dude with the gazelle, cries out for the Ifrit to stop and give him an audience. Annoyed, but somehow compliant, the Ifrit stops what he's doing and listens to the old man for a second. The old man quickly kisses the Ifrit's hand as a thank you and proposes that he shall tell the Ifrit his life story, and how this gazelle here isn't really a gazelle at all. Should this story please the vengeful creature, then he should spare 1/3 of the merchant's life. Whatever that means, I'm not really sure. Forgetting for a moment that the merchant is the killer of his son, the Ifrit decides to listen to the mysterious old man's story. And so begins the story of the mysterious old man and his gazelle. Well guys, in honor of Shahrzad's legacy, we're going to cut the video off right here. If you wish to know what happens next, then please hit the subscribe button and the bell icon so you'll be immediately notified upon part 2's release. This is Jeannie, signing off.